I think I had an encounter with a Skinwalker cryptids. I am 25, I live in Utah, and I'm curious if any of you have seen anything like this before. I'm pretty sure I saw a Skinwalker. I know it sounds strange or crazy. I don't really believe in those things, and I'm regularly skeptical when it comes to the paranormal. This happened to me when I was 17 and in high school and living with my parents. My house at the time was in a very small town. The backyard faced open, empty fields and mountains for miles before you reached another civilization at all. My best friend lived next door and shared this field as our backyard in a way. I have to explain that his house was built on a different street that ended in the field with a small cul-de-sac. I think there was supposed to be more houses built down this street to expand the town, but they clearly never got around to it. So his driveway was basically in this cul-de-sac, even though no other houses were built there. This matters later in the story. I used to stay the night at my friend's house a lot in high school because I didn't have the best relationship with my parents. Every once in a while, we would wake up to hear dragging and a weird gargling sound from the back porch. His room was a basement room with the window well to the back porch. It would happen maybe a couple times a month, but whenever we would gather the courage to check, nothing would be back there. This happened for years. One night haunts my friend and I to this day. My friend was getting ready to move, and we would stay up all night playing games and watching movies. We decided to go on a music drive to just vibe, so we hopped in his truck with high beams and swung out of the driveway, turning them on towards the field to use the roundabout. The light illuminated this thing. It looked like a person, but it wasn't. It was naked on all fours, abnormally large, particularly its limbs that seemed to fold under itself in an unnatural way. Its pale skin clung to it, like it had to be stretched onto it. But the part that still sends shivers down my spine is its face. Its jaw hung open to this gaping black maw, like a snake unhinging its jaw to eat. Its black eyes glistened in the light as it looked at us. But just as it turned to see us, it quickly scurried backwards, almost like it was on rewind, into the brush of the field. My friend and I were pale as ghosts. We both looked at each other like, "Did you see that too?" We were shaken. Let's just say we tried to have a good rest of the night, but we couldn't believe what we saw. We ended up just sitting there in his basement with guns ready and waiting to hear the gargling and dragging again. But we never did. Sorry that it's not very climactic, but it's the truth. I now don't live in that town anymore. There are times when I visit there, though. That empty field still feels like it's watching and waiting. Even though I can't see it, I can still feel like it's out there. The time I saw a Skinwalker. Alright, so this was a pretty brief encounter and it was terrifying. So this happened in my hometown in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My uncle, his girlfriend at the time, she is Native American, no prejudice, it makes sense later, and I were on our way back from a casino an hour south of Santa Fe. We took this back road on the outskirts of town. We always took this route, as it was the easiest way across town and home. My uncle is driving his girlfriend dead asleep in the back seat, and I'm riding shotgun. We turn on this familiar road and drive a ways down it. As we go, there are houses on our left and the desert on our right. I catch a glimpse of what looks like a humanoid hunched over, with its arms extended to the ground, almost as if it was on all fours, kind of breeze across the road. It quickly ran into the desert, but from that few seconds I could clearly see what appeared to be a mask made of fur on its face and two different sized antlers coming off the top. But what really struck me and still gives me the creeps till this day are the eyes. I peered right into them, and to this day I can't explain the horror I looked into. This all happened in a matter of seconds. I looked at my uncle and tried exclaiming what I had just seen. He says I looked pale and my eyes were full of fear. I finally get it out and tell him, I think I just saw a Skinwalker. As I'm saying those words, the biggest owl either of us have ever seen, with snow-white feathers, flies next to my window and hoots at us, then flies away. His girlfriend is suddenly awake in the back seat and starts telling us about the correlation of skinwalkers and how they morph into owls. She grew up on the reservation, so she is more versed in the lore of entities like this than we were. She told us other things as well, but I don't remember much. It was surreal, and that encounter still gives me goosebumps to this day. That night, when I encounter a skinwalker, I live in a rural area in Florida. This happened a few weeks ago. I was driving by myself at around midnight, and I came to a stoplight where there's a cemetery on the right and new apartment buildings on the left. This particular light is extremely long since it's not activated by sensors when you pull up to the light. So I'm waiting for a few minutes, and all of a sudden I instinctively look behind me. It felt like someone was watching me intently. About 30 feet away from where I was waiting for the light is a bus stop behind me. Right in front of the benches where you wait for the bus, I see a huge figure that looks like a wolf or a giant dog. I'm staring at it, thinking to myself, wow, that's an enormous dog. All the while I start to feel goosebumps. I feel my heart start racing, and I can't figure out why. I start to feel evil thoughts in my head. I say, feel, because I couldn't make out what words were being said. I just remember while I was staring at this dog, I felt like it was mocking me, laughing, and challenging me. Then, I see the figure stand up on two legs while staring in my direction. It stood up and was suddenly taller than the top of the bus overhang, but it didn't look like a human. It looked like an animal just started standing on two legs. Meanwhile, I'm still waiting for the damn light to turn green. And keep in mind, there's lights all around the bus stop, but this figure was pure black. So the figure was stood up on two legs, and now it looked like a huge dog with an alpaca neck and body, but the neck looked really girthy. I see this thing continue to stare in my direction, and I think to myself, okay, this is really weird, but even if it's my imagination, it's going to disappear when I start driving. The whole time I'm feeling panicked, and I hear in my head, "Run, but I can chase you!" I skirt out of the stoplight. It's still freaking red, but I did not care at that point, and drive away as quick as I can. And then, I look behind me as I'm driving, and the freaking figure is sprinting at full speed on all fours behind me. It looked like a deranged wolf was chasing me. I felt pure panic as I was speeding away, and maybe out of instinct I yelled, "I have God with me, you can't hurt me. Nothing can hurt me. I am protected by my angels and by God." Paraphrasing here. It was at that point I realized I was feeling like I was being choked, because after I said that out loud, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't feel like I was being chased anymore, and when I looked back, the thing was gone. Am I literally insane in the membrane? I do believe in the paranormal, and I do believe in skinwalkers, but I honestly hope it was just my imagination, because this happened 2 minutes from my house.